Hey there, Innovation Champions. Melissa Dinwiddie here. This past week, I had the incredible opportunity to step inside what might be the most effective innovation lab I have ever witnessed. No, I wasn't at Google's X Lab or Meta's Reality Labs. I wasn't surrounded by cutting-edge technology or million-dollar prototypes. I was sitting in a theater. Specifically, I was at TheaterWorks New Works Festival right here in Silicon Valley, which is an annual showcase where playwrights test their works in progress with live audiences over the course of about a week and a half. And what I witnessed there taught me more about real innovation than many corporate innovation sessions that you might have attended yourself. So, picture this, a bare stage, just chairs, microphones, and music stands, and actors, of course. No sets, no costumes, just phenomenal actors with scripts that they had received that very day, performing after maybe 4 rehearsals total, I think. Before each show, the audience was prepared. Somebody came out below the stage from one of the exit doors and told us, the cast just got these scripts today. They had minimal rehearsal time. If they restart a song or they stumble, just give them some grace. This is all about the process. And here's the kicker. In every program insert, there were QR codes that led to custom feedback forms with 3 specific questions for each play. Not generic surveys. These were very targeted questions crafted by the artists themselves to get exactly the feedback that they needed to improve. So what happened next was pure innovation theater. Between the first and second performances, audiences watched the plays transform in real time. So for example, one of the shows, 10 minutes trimmed off on the pacing feedback. In another show, the sound of bells, which was mentioned in opening dialogue, the sound of bells brought to life by the cast's voices, a cappella. Even a typo in the festival program materials was woven into the actual dialogue of one of the plays, which created one of the biggest laughs of the night. This was just an example. And this was not just creativity. This was systematic innovation using the exact principles that drive breakthrough thinking in tech. And guess what? It maps perfectly to my Create the Impossible framework. So let's go through the framework, the 3 steps right here. So starting with step 1, play hard. That is the first principle of my Create the Impossible framework. Play hard. And these theater artists, they're masters of playing hard. They approach their work with the kind of really fearless experimentation that most tech teams can only dream of. Think about it. These performers were willing to get on stage with minimal preparation, knowing that they might stumble, they might have to restart, they might completely bomb a scene. They'd had like 4 rehearsals. But instead of paralysis, there was excitement. They were playing at the highest level. They were treating each performance as an adventure rather than a test. How often do we see that kind of attitude in corporate innovation labs? Not very often, right? Usually teams are so focused on looking professional and avoiding mistakes that they never truly experiment. They create like really safe prototypes that, won't embarrass anyone. And as a result, they're never going to surprise anyone either. The theater artists reminded me that real innovation, it requires us to get really comfortable with public imperfection. Their willingness to fail in front of an audience is exactly the mindset that leads to breakthrough discoveries. So let's move on to step 2. Make crap. That is the second principle of my Create the Impossible framework. And make crap was beautifully demonstrated in the festival's entire structure. Because these were not really, polished, final productions. They were intentionally rough drafts brought to life. Just actors reading from scripts right in front of them, no costumes or anything. And the audience was explicitly told that these were works in progress. We knew that when we bought our tickets. Everyone understood that they were witnessing creative crap in the best possible sense. Early iterations that needed refinement, but contained the seeds of something really extraordinary. Now, this is where most innovation initiatives fail. We wait until our ideas are, good enough to show anyone. And we polish and we perfect in isolation instead of getting feedback really early when it can actually shape the direction of our work. But the playwrights understood something really crucial. You just can't know if a joke's going to land, or if a song is going to move people, or if a plot twist is going to surprise audiences until you put it in front of real people. No amount of theoretical analysis is ever going to replace that lived feedback. So in tech terms, they were running the ultimate minimum viable product tests. They were gathering user feedback and iterating rapidly based on real data rather than assumptions. So let's move on to step 3 in the Create the Impossible framework. Learn fast. This is the third principle, and it's perhaps the most sophisticated element of the entire festival. Because this was not random feedback collection, it was strategic. It was targeted learning designed for maximum impact. Every play had exactly 3 questions. Not 10, not 20, 3. And the questions were different for each production. And they were crafted specifically to gather the insights that particular piece needed most, according to the artist, what the artist wanted. And here's a really brilliant part. The artists saw every piece of feedback. So respondents were coached to be constructive and kind. Think about it. That would really suck if you're the artist and you got just really nasty feedback, right? So this approach solved one of the biggest challenges in corporate innovation: feedback overload and irrelevance, right? We don't need irrelevant feedback. So instead of drowning in generic survey responses, the artists got precisely the information that they needed to make really meaningful improvements. See, there's imperfection right there. In this video is my alarm going off. The artists got exactly the information that they needed in order to make really significant and meaningful improvements between the performances. And those learning cycles were really tight. Sometimes there was less than 48 hours between performances. So those changes were implemented immediately and tested with the next audience and refined again if needed. And this is the kind of really rapid iteration that separates truly innovative organizations from those that just, talk about innovation. So let's talk about that secret ingredient. What made all of this possible wasn't just the framework. It was the environment. The festival had created what psychologist Amy Edmondson calls psychological safety at the highest level because audiences were primed to be supportive. Mistakes were normalized. The focus was entirely on learning and improvement rather than on judgment or evaluation. Everyone, the artists, the audience members, everyone understood that they were participating in a collaborative creative process. This is the missing piece in most corporate innovation efforts. We talk about wanting breakthrough ideas, but then we create these environments where people are afraid to truly experiment because we say we want innovation, but then we punish the failures that are so essential to the creative process. So let's talk about your challenge this week. Here's what I want you to try. Pick one project or challenge that your team is working on and run it through the theater innovation model. First, play hard. What would you attempt if you knew it was okay to restart the song if things went wrong? What experiment would you run if failure was expected and celebrated rather than feared? Second, make crap. Instead of waiting until your idea is polished and, really great, not even perfect, but really great, share the roughest possible version with a real user or a real stakeholder and be explicit that this is a work in progress and that you're seeking specific feedback. And finally, learn fast. Don't ask for general feedback. Craft 2 to 3 specific questions that will give you exactly the insights that you need to improve. And make sure that the person who is giving the feedback knows that their input is going to directly influence the next iteration, just like we knew that when we were giving feedback to the playwrights. And most importantly, create that psychological safety that makes all of this possible. Let your team know that the goal isn't perfection, it's learning and rapid improvement. The theater artists reminded me that innovation isn't about having all the answers. It's about having the courage to ask questions in public and then learn from the responses and iterate rapidly based on what you discover. That's how you create the impossible, not in isolation, but in collaboration with the very people that you're trying to serve. Ready to create an innovation environment where your team feels safe to experiment boldly? Click the link in the description to book a complimentary innovation strategy session. Let's explore how the Create the Impossible framework can help you transform your approach to innovation and unlock unprecedented creativity on your team. If you found these insights about theater's innovation secrets valuable, hit that like button and subscribe to join our community of innovation champions. Don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss a new strategy for driving creativity and innovation in your work. And I'd love to know your thoughts on this topic. Have you ever witnessed rapid iteration and fearless experimentation in action? What innovation experiments have you seen that truly encouraged bold thinking? Or maybe you have your own theater moment where you learn something unexpected about innovation. Share your insights in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious, stay playful, stay experimental, and keep creating the impossible. See you next time. Ciao.